It was 2004. I was working as an analyst at an investment firm, and my cousin Nadia was having trouble in math. So when she was visiting me in Boston, and when she went back to New Orleans, I started tutoring her remotely.
Right.
And then word got around in the family that free tutoring was happening. And so you fast forward about 18 months later. By that point, I had moved out to Northern California. I was tutoring about 10 cousins and family friends every day after work. And it was then, and I already started working on kind of a software platform to assess where my students, my cousins were. And so when I did the tutorials with them, I could keep track of things. But it was a friend that suggested, well, why don't you augment that and help yourself scale up by making some lessons on YouTube, which I immediately thought was a silly idea. But I gave it a shot, and it became clear very shortly in the next few months that people who were not my cousins were watching, and then that viewership kept growing. Probably a few months into it, when I was tutoring about 3 of cousins, Nadia and her 2 younger brothers, I just realized that they had all these gaps in their knowledge. I realized as their tutor, I was spending a lot of time just figuring out what they knew and what they didn't know. And my background was in software. I said, oh, and I always had a curiosity with education software. I had many attempts at writing little quiz generators. So I wrote these little things that would give them fraction problems or decimal problems or simple algebra problems. It would generate them.
Right.
And then it would keep track of what they got wrong or what they didn't get right and what they got right. And then I would be able to see that report before I did the tutorial and say, hey, it looks like you had a little bit of trouble with this. Can you tell me more about what you found difficult about it? And it just made our tutorials more productive.
Right.
And so the videos were, and actually that was, and even then it was a little web application, and I called it the Khan Academy, not knowing, you know, what do I call this thing? Right. And so then when I made the first few videos actually had titles like Level 1 Equations.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what's Level 1 Equations? Well, there was a little software module called Level 1 Equations.
Right. And of course at that point it was just for a single individual, so it wasn't like you had to worry about the mass audience and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was for just my cousins. I mean, I was building it in a way that I hoped that it could be used by more people. You know, it was a hobby. It was fun that even just after a little while, 20 or 30 people had signed up using it just through word of mouth. Just that was exciting. I'd never written anything of that. And I did have this dream that you could create a learning platform for people that at minimum could give them the scaffold of learning, and if they had nothing else, could kind of be the basis of what they know.